Now, when I start to work with different drawings are going to show different sets of information. And the way that we work through that is what we do is we basically pile on all of our objects, okay, in the original model file. And then what we do is we turn layers on and off. So for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this viewport to show you what happens when we turn layers on and off in different areas. So, as I said, you can turn layers on and off. The way that you can do that, if you type in your layer manager, okay, you'll see that you have the option for turning layers on, off, or you can also freeze them or thaw them, or you can actually lock them if you need to. And what this does is it's basically, if you select these, they freeze them and thaw them throughout the whole file, okay? And you'll see that there's a little bit of a problem in the way that you find those layers to work with, okay? Because you'll see that there's going to be tons and tons and tons of layers and potentially more. So what AutoCAD did was made it a little bit easier in that I can go into my model file, or model space, okay? This is my XREF, and I can use my layer freeze and my layer off buttons, tool buttons up here in order to make the process a little bit faster. Okay, now if I do this in model space to the XREF, let's freeze those stairs. If I go into my layout, you'll see that they freeze in both of my viewports. Okay, but there are times when we want it to show up in one viewport and not another. So if I go back into my model space and I undo that, okay, go back into my layout, you'll see that they reappear. And what I can actually do is I can actually turn layers on and off in individual viewports. So to do that, okay, I'm going to activate and make live my viewport, okay, either by double-clicking in it, okay, or by maximizing the viewport, okay. And again, all this does is it maximizes the viewport and takes the, it kind of eases, it kind of alleviates you changing the scale when you start to work in your viewport. So that's why I actually prefer this method. And what I can do is I can actually do the same thing. So I can go into my layer freeze, and I can click on those stairs, for example, or the doors, and I can minimize my viewport. And now you'll see that they changed in this viewport and not in this. So I can start to kind of selectively show or hide the information that I want for each drawing in each viewport. And in order to get them back, okay, if I double click and I make live this viewport, okay, either by double clicking inside of it or again by maximizing it and minimizing it, okay, what pops up are some additional icons which show the turn the layer on and off, freeze it, lock it, but also there's this box with the sun in the corner, okay? And that basically means you're freezing or thawing it in a specific viewport, okay? So what I find is that a plan door, okay, is frozen in this viewport. So to get it back, all I have to do is click on that icon, okay, turn the sun back on, and you'll see that my doors come back up, okay? If I go down my list and I see, oh, my plan stairs, okay, that's frozen in this viewport. I can click on that, and then those turn back on. So I can start to be selective about the information that I want to show in these viewports. What I want to do now is I want to start up to set up what's called annotative text. And this is how we're going to actually be adding our text and our dimension styles and in terms of notes to AutoCAD. But the issue is this is very different from the way that text and dimensions are traditionally set up in AutoCAD. So just keep that one in mind. This is actually a much more up-to-date way of doing it. The way that you would have to do it before is that you would have to set up a dimension style and a text style for each scale that you're using. So if you're using, 16th inch scale, and this is, for the drawing set. If you're using 16th inch, quarter inch, eighth inch, half inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, it starts to add up really, really, really quickly. So what AutoCAD basically said is that they're, the way that they've set up their tools is that they get rid of that system. And they're saying, well, okay, what we're going to do instead is we're going to set up the text and we're going to set up the dimensions in order to show up in the viewports that they're supposed to show up in, and otherwise they're not going to show up. That's about the trickiest part about it. And to do it, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding all of our notes and dimensions in model space of our original drawing. Okay. Some firms will add their notes and dimensions in paper space, okay, basically in order to alleviate that whole issue with the old way of doing the text and dimensions. But it's also very common to do them in model space. I actually think it's a lot easier to do it in model space, and it makes a lot more sense, because what happens is if you do them in paper space and you have to snap from one point to another, it doesn't always register that, okay? So it ends up making not only a lot more work, but what adding them, in model space also does is that if I change a wall, I can change my notes and my dimensions at the same time. So I don't have to switch from my original plan to my paper space in order to change the sheets and the notes separately. Okay, this kind of saves me a step with doing that. So I'm going to open up my modified plan and hit open, because I have that open and you'll see the changes reflected in this. So I'm going to open my original modified plan. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to set up my notes and my dimensions. Okay, so the first thing that I have to do is I have to type in style in order to create my text style. Now, we did this already, but what we're going to do is we're going to create an annotative text style. So I'm going to click new. I'm going to name it, let's say MK annotative. Okay, so that I know it's mine and I know it's annotative. I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to make sure that when I select this, okay, that this annotative button is checked. Okay, now you'll see that what happens is that this height changes from height to paper text height when I click on annotative. What this means that in the end, no matter what, so the old way of doing it was that you would have to figure out how big the text has to be with each scale. What happens with annotative text is AutoCAD figures that out, and it says with the paper text height, no matter what height in the end, okay, or what scale in the end, your text, okay, is going to be this tall, and I'm going to figure that out for you. Okay, this has nothing to do with any scale, so always keep that in mind. All this is literally a height. So I'm going to type in 1/8 inch, okay, because we said that text should always be 1/8 of an inch high. I'm just going to keep it with Arial, and I'm going to keep it at regular, and I'm going to go to close. And then if it asks me if I want to save it, just say yes. And then if I go up to annotate at the top, okay, you'll see that it should make it current in the list. If it doesn't, okay, expand that and make sure that you click on it and make sure that it's current. Okay, to go back into the styles to change it, if you need to, if you type in style, it'll bring you back in there so you can make any changes, or if you expand this ribbon, you'll see with that little arrow, you'll see that that also calls it up. Okay, now to set up our dimension style, if I type in dim style, okay, now I'm going to set up my dimension style manager. So I'm going to again say new. I'm going to name it something that I'm going to remember. I'm going to go to continue. Okay, if you didn't make it annotative to begin with, okay, we can do that later on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the styles for that. Now, everything underlined should be fine. Okay, symbols and arrows, with arrowheads, a lot of times you use an architectural tick. So I'm going to find that. Okay, and you'll see that the preview changes here. Everything else should be fine. Under text, this is the important part. Okay, under text, and this is why we create our text style first, is that under text style, okay, I'm going to expand this list and I'm going to find the one that I just created. So MK annotative. Okay, that's about the most important step that you can make with this. Okay, so make sure that you do make that. You shouldn't be able to adjust any of the heights afterwards. You don't need to. Okay, under fit, everything is fine. Under primary units, make sure that it's architectural. Under alternate units, okay, you really don't need anything there. and under tolerances. Okay, you don't really need to change anything there either. Just make sure that if you did not set it up to be annotative at first, always make sure or double check under fit that that annotative is selected, because we want to make these annotative. So I'm going to hit OK, and you'll see that this little symbol, okay, there's that little blue triangular symbol, that always means that something's annotative. As long as that's next to that, then that means you're okay. If it's not, then again, go into modify, go into fit, and make sure that that's checked. So I'm going to hit OK and close, and now you'll see that that also makes it the default style. If not, go into your list and make sure that's selected in order to be your style, and then you can start to work with it.